Women entrepreneurs are changing the world. This week on The Whitney Reynolds Show, we're talking to women who have climbed the working ladder and are now on top of the world.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Auto Barn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago, the Auto Barn Mazda, where driving matters, iLearn Center, intelligent learning for children 6 weeks to 5 years, helping our young learners become leaders, and the Respiratory Health Association, raising funds and awareness for lung disease research and programs. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly with App Properties, Pearls Southern Comfort, Chicago Andrea Creative, Mazda, Modern Classics Furniture.
Today on The Whitney Reynolds Show, we're sitting down with our 2017 class of these women entrepreneurs, CEOs who are making a difference in the world of business.
You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show.
Meet Dr. Sandy Goldberg, an Emmy Award winner for her breast cancer surgery and documentary and treatment, One Woman's Story. She has ensured that a woman's social status will not affect their ability to seek information and help for cancer. Please welcome out the inspiring Sandy Goldberg. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sandy.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here with you, Whitney.
So today we're talking women entrepreneurs, and you are a woman that has just broke all the barriers when it comes to taking your own personal experience and really turning lemons into lemonade.
And you know, that's a very good way of putting it. And I think that many of us are capable of doing it if we just allow ourselves to.
You were diagnosed with cancer, and you not only opened up about your whole journey with your viewers on NBC, but then you also started this talk show to answer questions, and that was a public access for the people type of help show.
Right.
And how did you get to that point to see that there was such a need to do more?
I think our eyes are open when we see that we live in one kind of a world, those of us who are blessed to have great insurance and wonderful support, and the wagons that are circled around us, as I learned when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then as a result of our show, I realized that people were using our show as their primary care physician. And when I would talk from my protected world, I realized, and with great pain, Whitney, that people felt they weren't worthy because they had no money and they had no insurance. And that, to me, it broke my heart. It just broke my heart.
So you saw this huge disconnect that was happening where people would call into the show and they were listening to what you were saying, but taking that almost verbatim of like, okay, this is what I need to do with my health.
Not only what I need to do with my health, but where can I go to get help? Access to healthcare, even when we started our show, which was 14 plus years ago, was not that easy. Now, fast forward to the way the world is now. But back in those days, people literally, the fact of self-worth or lack of self-worth, because not having insurance, not having a financial circumstance that would allow people to get access, that was really the genesis of my husband and I starting a Silver Lining Foundation.
Well, so women that are on this show today have started businesses, but this foundation thing is a whole new ball game. How did you go about taking your television program to then creating this foundation that is set after the same mission?
In all honesty, blind luck. My husband and I started the Silver Lining Foundation at our kitchen table with one check. And the most interesting thing about it, and I think probably what propelled us into becoming as successful in terms of being able to provide services for uninsured and underinsured women, is the fact that literally we didn't know what we were doing, and we had to learn as we went along. But I think the most important thing of all is not to be afraid. If you're afraid, then what is going to happen is that you're not going to do anything. And then your plan or your hopes are not going to come to fruition.
I like that. So how do you not be afraid? Because that's easier said than done. I think back to moments where I've been very afraid and you almost have to like lead with blind faith knowing, okay, I can do this. But how'd you get past that fear?
You just do it. You just do it. I know that I'm supposed to give some sort of great philosophical treatise here or something like that, but you just have to decide that you have to get out of your own way. And this is what you want to accomplish. You have to listen to your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think, watch for those cues. I mean, we were going to do resource information and outreach. That is what a Silver Lining Foundation was going to be. Now we have 5 programs, but the heart of which is our Buy a Mama mammogram program. And what we do is that we fund the entire spectrum of breast health testing for uninsured and underinsured women and men, because men can get breast cancer too, at now 15 hospitals. How cool is that?
That is absolutely amazing. One of the things I want to pull out with what you're saying is you didn't start all these programs overnight.
No.
Like you said, you sat down with one check and you said, we want to set out to make a difference. So how did you grow organically?
I think you listen to the need. You listen to the need. I mean, we were doing a great job with our outreach program, which continues to this day. We have 24 participating organizations, some of which are nationwide. So if somebody calls us and said, my mother is in Oklahoma and she needs chemotherapy and she doesn't have any money, we can hook her up with organizations, our partner organizations nationwide, to provide hopefully some help. But then I started thinking about, I was lucky. NBC, great insurance. I had everything I needed. What about other people? Other women need access. And from my part of the world, what do they need access to? Breast health testing. How do we go about doing that? So we went to a hospital and said, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to do it. We sat down literally with the University of Illinois Medical Center and hammered out a template for what became Buy a Mama mammogram.
Buy a Mama mammogram.
Yep.
I love that. That's catchy.
It is. It is. And it is really, as I said, at the heart of what we do.
Like you said, listening is the key thing because they'll kind of point you in the right direction, your own little whispers.
And then from the questions that we were being asked, we started an education program. And that is the best.
Love it. And I just want to bring to light one more thing you just mentioned was that you work with other organizations.
Right.
I feel like so many times the world tells you there's not enough pie for everyone, but there really is. And working together can just change things.
Somebody used the word one time, and it was a word I never forgot in the arena of breast health and breast health testing. Competitors. There are no competitors, especially in this arena. Everybody is working towards the same thing, which is that people should be diagnosed early, have a good, long, healthy life. Some organizations really basically focus on research. I'm alive because of research. What we do is one life at a time. But we've all sort of herded together, in dealing with all of this in our own ways.
Love that.
And when I was diagnosed, I was told maybe 2 years, 16 and a half.
And here you are today.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Updates can be expensive, and our next guest knows exactly how to keep up with the new while staying on budget. Please welcome out HGTV's Design to Sell star, Monica Peterson.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You have worn so many hats. And one of the things I love about entrepreneurs is it can start at a very young age. And for you, you're modeling to put yourself through school.
Yeah, I was modeling in high school and college and paid for college doing that. And, a lot of people may think it's a mindless career, but, in the end, I did learn a lot from it. And a lot of what I learned doing that and being in fashion just parlayed naturally into interior design and then also working on television.
That is wild because you're right. Sometimes people do put little, jobs in a box or stigma around it. But here you were modeling to put yourself through school. So you modeled.
Yeah.
How did you get into home design? Because I love this story as well.
Well, I mean, I was working and I was getting older and I was like, okay, the phone wasn't ringing as much, I'll be honest. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? I've done this for a while. And I always had the idea that I would buy a house and rehab it. And my father was a rehabber. For my 18th birthday, I got a cordless drill. Like that was like how I grew up. Like I got married, I got a toolbox. And, so I was brought up with the idea that you do it yourself. And so I convinced my husband to move out of the city to the suburbs, and we bought a house that needed everything. Nobody wanted to buy it. And I was like, perfect. This is just what I dreamed of. And my husband's like, listen, honey, I don't know how to do anything. I'm like, no problem. So I got into it. I really loved it. And at the time I went to my agent and I'm like, listen, I love being in design and construction and moving forward. I will come down and please reach out to me if there are opportunities in sort of the home design world. And then I booked my first commercial, and it was a Sears commercial with Bob Vila for Craftsman Tools. And I got booked because I knew how to use the drill. And the casting director was like, God, you really worked that drill. I'm like, well, I brought my tool bucket, my goggles. I'm like, I was just like banging out my bathroom, an hour ago. So I loved it. And then I started getting booked for more and more tool things, which was like ridiculous. Like you think of like Tool Girl, but I really was doing the work, and I loved it. And then months and months later, the audition for HGTV came into Chicago. And I'll be honest, not in a million years was I thinking I was going to get on a show on HGTV. I watched it. I loved it. I had my favorite people that I thought were inspiring designers, but it wasn't my goal. But my goal was to find a way to work in an industry that I loved.
So you end up doing the HGTV thing, your career, your passion, they all kind of collide. Everything kind of came together at once. How do you still keep your goals whenever you're living your dream? Because I think so many times we're chasing that dream, but when you get to the point where you feel like, okay, now I'm living it, how do you maintain that?
Yeah. I think it's sort of changing some of the goals you have within that dream. When you are an entrepreneur and you're growing your business, you're so overworked. Sometimes just to find the time and the energy and the brain power to go, what next? It's difficult. So, I slowly had some things I knew I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do a book. I knew someday there was a special I really wanted to host on HGTV, and I just put it out there and just said to, someone at the network, if you ever need anybody, I want to do it. I'd love to do it. And for me personally, the weakest part of my entrepreneurial journey is self-promoting. Some people live for it. I really I was just as happy painting the walls and being like, hey, so when you get there, it's also going, okay, what next? And what would bring me satisfaction, and what would I be as passionate about as I was to get here?
Yeah. So you're saying goal setting is important.
Goal setting is really important. And I think that is a definite trait for entrepreneurs. I mean, if you want to make it and you want it to be yours, you got to be passionate about it, because you're going to live, eat, breathe, sleep it 24 hours a day. It can't feel like work, or you're going to give up naturally. So you already kind of have that. You're already creative. You've got that desire. You've got the ambition, and you've got the work ethic to carry it through. So continuing to put those goals, in front of you, write them down, talk to friends, be creative. It'll keep you going. And sometimes it's okay, I think, to just let it be.
Yeah. So. And then I think there's such a beautiful thing to live in that dream for a little bit instead of thinking always, go.
Yeah.
Just being there and soaking it all in.
Yeah.
So what are you up to now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a new mom. I have a 3-year-old at home, and I went right back to work when my daughter Holly was born. At 4 weeks, I got a terrific opportunity with NBC in Los Angeles to judge a big, glossy, expensive design show. And then when you do what I do, that's you've made it, that's the American Idol of what we do. So, we went out, we had a week to pack up. It was insane. My husband and I went out and finished the show. It didn't get picked up. And when we got back from LA, my daughter was 6 months. And I just said to my husband, I'm like, I just want to stay home in my pink bathrobe. And I hadn't had that time in my life to be a mom. And it was something I wasn't sure if I was going to do or not, for my own reasons. And I just love it. So I'm doing that. And then I'm going to do a show starting, we'll probably be filming in February, and it's here in Chicago, and it's called Built to Last. And it's a show I'm very proud to be a part of. It follows the plight of a journeyman carpenter. And a lot of people don't realize that they go through union school. Carpenters, plumbers, tile layers, everything. Unions are very strong here in Chicago. And these are the guys that are doing the Field Museum and are doing McCormick Place and Maggie Daly Park and all the places that change our lives. And so it kind of gives you a behind the scenes of what these guys go through. And then they also will do a home for disabled veterans. So, cool. I just kind of get to, I will be, the voice of what's happening, and I'm going to enjoy it and do it. And I think an entrepreneur would tell you, you just kind of know, you sort of wake up and go,
Yeah, I love it.
I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good waiting spot, and I'm really happy that I can do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, and thank you for having me.
Now it's time for the viewer's voice, where we take the discussion to the streets. Today's question is, what is the most difficult challenge facing women in business?
Women in business in the past has been dealt with casual, sort of behind the scene networks, like men playing golf together, and some of those networks are closed to women or not as available as they should be. And so to raise up in the business world, it's helpful to have those networks, and sometimes they're not open to women.
Unfortunately, as much as the world changes and as much as people change, things that have been the same over the course of time, the people who run those systems don't change easily. So making it to the hierarchy of those jobs, those career fields, to be able to make that change and effect is the only way that can happen. Trying to change it from our level or with just masses of numbers, it's going to be hard. Economic change and promotion within the system is the only way to do it.
I haven't worked out in the business world. I'm a writer. My husband's a writer. We've had the option of working at home. And so that's been great. But from a lot of my friends who do work out in the corporate world, what I really hear is that a lot of times their opinion isn't taken as seriously when they have an answer. But if someone else, a man, comes up with the same answer, everybody's, oh, that's a great idea. And I identified with that as a parent. I would tell my kids something and they would ignore it. But if somebody else's mom said the same thing, oh, it was a wonderful idea. But I think the same is true out in the corporate world for a lot of women. I think a lot of times it's hard to be taken seriously.
The challenge for women is they're not men. So they're viewed as the other, and with everything that brings to the table.
Oh, I think what people are talking about now is women's inability to say no, I'm not going to do that, to have a firm and strong voice, and to ask for the kinds of raises, promotions, and things that men tend to feel justified to ask for. Women oftentimes will feel a little bit more timid about going into the room and asking their boss, I need a raise.
The problem with women in business is that they're simultaneously sexualized and desexualized at the same time, right? Any woman who goes into business, the first thing people think of when they see her is, wow, she's pretty good looking in that skirt or whatever she's wearing. And that's the first thing that most people will talk about when they see a woman in business or in any other circumstance. That's what they come to. And that gives them a certain amount of power. In other words, the pretty girl is the one who never gets never gets a speeding ticket, because she can talk her way out of it, smile, show a little leg, whatever it takes. But on the other hand, in business, there's a ceiling, because you don't want to allow someone with that kind of sort of magical power into the boardroom, because then she could sway things more than a man could. So there's a limit to how far she could ever progress.
Just a little light in the darkest place can make all the difference. In efforts to help survivors in the 2013 Haiti earthquake, 2 women invented Luminate solar light with high energy efficiency. Our next guest took their invention worldwide after appearing on Shark Tank, and are here to tell us the ins and outs of the business. Anna, it's great to have you in studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
So a lot of people probably noticed you from Shark Tank right now. You did really well on the show. Your idea was actually picked up. But I want people to know the idea behind Luminate, because it really does have a give back whole idea to it.
Yeah, it has a really interesting story behind it. So Andrea, my business partner, and I, we were studying to get our master's in architecture. So we were studying to be architects, and we were sitting in graduate school 2 weeks after the earthquake in Haiti had occurred in 2010. And we were looking at the conditions on the ground after the earthquake. So if you remember, the earthquake occurred right outside of the major city in Haiti called Port-au-Prince. And there were over 1 million people that were left homeless, and they were living in these really densely packed informal settlements, like right on top of each other. And one thing that really struck us was that there was no source of lighting that was being shipped. So we decided to focus that whole semester on designing a lightweight and rechargeable lantern that could be easily shipped and distributed in emergencies.
How did that idea come up? Because I know what you're saying, which you saw the conditions and you heard the reports that people were kind of huddled up, no light. How did you actually dream up, how do we get it to be solar? How did you put that all together?
It was kind of a quick trial and error in our minds because, I mean, for example, it's actually very interesting that in a lot of areas where there's a lot of disasters, there's actually a lot of sun. So making something solar rechargeable made a lot of sense to us. Also because the cost of solar lights and things like that you can put around your house, that's really going down. So you see lots of solar lights around. So we thought that making something solar made a lot of sense. And then so our lantern is inflatable. It packs flat and then inflates. And the idea for inflating came by kind of looking at what's typically shipped in emergencies. There's a lot of inflatable shelters, and that's what a lot of our classmates, some of them were designing inflatable shelters and inflatable infrastructure for hospitals and things like that. So the idea of like pack, flat, and inflatable came from kind of seeing larger scale things that were being shipped.
So when did it get to the point that you're like, we actually have a product here? Like, this is not a grad school just project that is an idea that will just be tossed away. This is something that we can actually make a business out of.
At the end of the semester, Andrea and I took our prototype to the Columbia Tech Transfer Office, like where you go to file IP and patents. And so at that point, we knew that we had a good idea, but we didn't necessarily know whether it could be patented, whether we should think of it as a product or a technology, exactly like what this could be. So we filed a provisional patent for it at that time. And then the following year, we started doing business plan competitions. And I think that really changed the game for us because in each competition, we started understanding the potential for the volume of products that are distributed in emergencies and the potential for this product to have a really big impact if we were to able to market it to those large organizations that were already procuring supplies. So those business plan competitions really changed it for us, and we started to really see it as a business and want to bring it to market.
So this is the product right here.
Yes. So we have a couple different shapes and sizes. This was our original one. I'll demo it for you. So it's just a solar panel, a rechargeable battery, packs up really small, and then you just go like this.
Wow. So like in one breath.
Well, I'm very experienced inflating it, but typically it's
that
really
might take
easy.
me like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. So that is the product right there. Have you already heard stories of it being life-saving?
We have. I think that's the most meaningful thing is being able to work with organizations. So this logo is actually Shelter Box is one of our largest customers, and we work with Doctors Without Borders and several other really, really impressive organizations that are doing incredible work on the ground in emergencies. And they have given us great feedback, great photos, great information about how our lights are impacting people who have lost absolutely everything. So that's been meaningful for us.
How did business change after getting some money behind you? Because I think that's how a lot of entrepreneurs like, if only I had $200,000. So how did that change for you when you got it?
So we did crowdfunding to first launch our product, and then we actually did a lot of business plan and grant competitions, and we have won over, I think, $300,000 just in grant and business plan competitions. There's so many resources out there that you can leverage without giving away equity or anything like that in your company. So that was really important to us. And then we did Shark Tank, and that's when we took on our first investor, which is Mark Cuban. And that has, I think, taking on a strategic investor or partner changes the business in a different way because there's someone else that you're not just accountable to each other and your company, you are accountable to this person. But it's been a really great experience for us to have his support and his encouragement in our company. So that's been good.
That's another question I want to get to is what is it like? So many entrepreneurs decide they're going to go out about this on their own. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to start my own business. What is it like having business partners?
I think it's incredibly valuable to have a business partner, especially someone that complements your weaknesses or your things that you may not be so good at. And Andrea and I think, are very good complements to each other. We're very different personalities. Our strengths are very different, but we complement each other, I think, in a really good way. And there's always a process in terms of working together and understanding when you're different people and when you both care so much about a company. But I think that if you have that common ground of really caring about the company, you're able to work together productively. So I think it's our biggest asset is having two like very different people, and all of our colleagues are also we have an incredible group of people.
That's such good advice. One last question for you. People always get worried about being a one-hit wonder. Where do you see yourself evolving?
I think that is really important to us to keep the creativity within our business and to figure out how we innovated in the solar space. And our goal is to continue to innovate in this space, in the solar lighting, portable energy space. So for us, that's the most important thing. And we want to build a brand around innovating in this space.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Today on The Whitney Reynolds Show, our guests have shown us that women all around the world are making a difference by following their dreams. These ladies have not only found their calling, but are using their talents to help others. Our 2017 class of women entrepreneurs have some of the biggest hearts I've seen roll through the studio. For more information on today's show, visit whitneyreynolds.com.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. I Learn Center, intelligent learning for children 6 weeks to 5 years, helping our young learners become leaders. And the Respiratory Health Association, raising funds and awareness for lung disease research and programs. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly with App Properties, Pearl's Southern Comfort, Chicago Andrea Creative, Mazda, Modern Classics Furniture.